After the real heiress and the fake heiress were switched at birth, both of them finally went back to the lives they were supposed to have. But Mary had already gotten used to a life of luxury, and even after being kicked out with nothing, she was still as arrogant as ever. So she called up her friends and tried to borrow some money for a 5-star hotel. But the same people who used to flatter her all the time suddenly had excuses the moment she asked for cash. One said he was broke, another said she was out of the country. They had already heard that Mary and the real heiress had been switched, and now that Mary had nothing to offer, why would they help her? Mary was furious and cursed them all for being a bunch of fair-weather snobs. With nowhere else to go, Mary brought her daughter to the stepmother's place in her birth family. She looked at the house, which was smaller than the closet she used to have, and her face was full of disgust. Then, without even asking, she walked straight into the only master bedroom and demanded that the stepmother buy a new bed by tomorrow. From now on, she said, that room would belong to her and her daughter. The stepmother almost laughed in her face. She dragged Mary out of the bedroom and reminded her that she was no longer a rich heiress or a company representative. If she wanted to stay there, she would have to follow the rules. Then she took Mary to a tiny room that was barely 2 square meters. It used to be the room where the real heiress, Daisy, and her 2 kids slept. The stepmother told Mary this was where she and her daughter would live, and they had to pay rent every month on time. If they didn't, she'd kick them out. Mary stared at the cramped room, and humiliation hit her hard, but she had no choice but to stay. The next day, when Mary went to work and saw Daisy pull up to the company in designer clothes and a luxury car, she still refused to back down, saying she would take back everything she had lost someday. But Daisy only looked at her calmly and asked if it was hard for her to squeeze onto the bus during rush hour every morning, since her hair was a mess and one of the buttons on her blouse was missing. Mary was furious. At that point, Mary said that if she had only made the fake DNA report more perfect back then and tricked Alex into thinking she and Daisy were half-siblings, none of this would have happened. If the lie had never been exposed, she would already be married to Alex, instead of standing there watching Daisy act so superior or getting humiliated and thrown out of the mansion. Mary assumed Alex had already told Daisy everything, so she didn't bother hiding what she said. What she didn't know was that Alex was too ashamed of being fooled to confess to Daisy. And Daisy, standing there in silence, finally realized that Alex had dumped her so coldly because Mary had been pulling the strings. Stunned by the truth, Daisy stormed into the bathroom and replayed that last date with Alex in her head, remembering the strange catch in his voice and the way he kept avoiding her. She was furious at Mary's dirty trick, and she also felt bad for Alex, who had been so afraid she would get hurt that he took on everything himself like an idiot. So when Alex called her up to the rooftop and nervously asked if they could get back together, Daisy agreed without hesitation. Mary got to the rooftop just in time to see the two of them make up, and the sight stabbed her right in the heart. To teach Mary a lesson, Daisy even made her shine her co-worker's shoes. Back when Daisy was the intern, Mary had made her kneel down and put on her shoes. Now Mary was the intern, and Daisy was her boss, so Daisy had to make her understand that bullying people was wrong. And the employees Mary had mistreated for so long obviously weren't about to miss a chance for revenge. They all kicked off their shoes and handed them to Mary, telling her to clean them carefully. Mary was furious, but if she refused, Daisy might use it as a reason to fire her. Then she'd have no paycheck to cover rent, and she and her daughter would end up sleeping on the street. So Mary could only swallow her pride and quietly take the shoes to polish them.